Ambassador Lee Minho stepped off the transport shuttle and looked up at the massive towers of Nexus Prime. The Galactic Council's headquarters stretched into the purple sky like giant metal fingers. After 30 years of Earth staying hidden from the galaxy, humanity was finally ready to join the bigger community of spacefaring races. Minho adjusted his diplomatic uniform and walked toward the welcoming committee. Beside him, his deputy Kim Ji-won carried a briefcase containing Earth's formal application for council membership. The alien beings greeting them looked friendly enough, though their appearances ranged from towering crystal creatures to floating jellyfish-like entities. "Welcome to Nexus Prime, humans," said the council's speaker, a being that looked like a walking tree with glowing blue leaves. "We have been expecting you." The next few days felt like a dream. Minho and his team were given beautiful rooms in the diplomatic quarter. The walls were made of some kind of smart glass that could show any view they wanted: Earth's mountains, ocean sunsets, or even live feeds from their home cities. The food was perfectly prepared to human tastes, and every comfort was provided. Park Jin-woo, their military advisor, seemed impressed by the advanced technology everywhere. "Their defense systems are incredible," he told Minho privately, "but I notice they keep asking detailed questions about our military capabilities." Communications officer Choi Yuna had been busy establishing secure channels back to Earth. "The council wants to know everything," she reported. "Our population numbers, industrial capacity, how many ships we can build. They say it's standard. Procedure for new members." The formal meetings began on the third day. The council chamber was a huge circular room with representatives from 12 different alien species sitting in floating pods around the walls. Each species had evolved on different worlds, creating a bizarre collection of beings that looked like they came from humanity's wildest science fiction stories. The speaker called the session to order. "Humanity has requested membership in our council. After reviewing your application and conducting preliminary assessments, we are pleased to offer you junior partnership status." Minho felt his heart race with excitement. This was what Earth had hoped for, a chance to join the galactic community peacefully. "However," the speaker continued, "as a new member, humanity will need to prove its commitment to council values. We assign you to peacekeeping duties in the Outer Rim territories. There are some minor conflicts there that need resolution." Kim Ji-won leaned forward. "What kind of peacekeeping operations?" A reptilian council member spoke up. "Nothing too dangerous. Some rebel groups causing trouble for established colonies. Your species has shown remarkable military innovation. We believe you would handle such situations effectively." The discussions continued for hours. The council members were polite but firm. Humanity would get membership, but first they had to earn it through service. The assignments seemed reasonable enough: patrol duties, protecting trade routes, dealing with pirates and raiders. That evening, Minho called his team together in their quarters. "What do you think?" he asked. Park Jin-woo frowned. "Something feels off. They keep asking about our weapons technology and ship designs, more than seems necessary for simple peacekeeping." Choi Yuna nodded. "I've been monitoring their communications. There's a lot of encrypted chatter whenever we're mentioned. They're definitely discussing us more than they let on." Kim Ji-won pulled up a holographic map of the galaxy. "These Outer Rim territories they want us to patrol, they're really far from the main council worlds, almost like they want us as far away as possible while we're proving ourselves." Despite their concerns, the opportunity was too important to pass up. Earth needed allies in the galaxy, and the council offered protection, trade partnerships, and access to advanced technologies that could solve many of humanity's problems. What the humans didn't know was happening in the council's private chambers. After each meeting, General Vorthak, the military advisor, had been studying humanity's capabilities for months. Human ships were faster and more maneuverable than expected. Their weapons were surprisingly effective. Most importantly, humans seemed willing to fight when necessary. Unlike many council species who had grown soft after centuries of peace, they could be very useful, Vorthak told the other council leaders. "Send them to deal with the Kepler Sector problem. If they succeed, we eliminate a major threat. If they fail, He made a gesture that needed no translation. The Council had faced this situation before with younger species, promising newcomers would be given increasingly dangerous assignments until they were either eliminated or became completely dependent on Council support. Either outcome served the Council's interests. Ambassador Minho signed the preliminary agreements 3 days later, officially making humanity junior partners in the Galactic Council. As he signed the documents, he felt hope for humanity's future among the stars. Soon, Earth's fleet would begin their first peacekeeping mission, ready to prove that humans deserved a place in the galactic community. Admiral Kang Tae-hyun stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars stretch into lines as they dropped out of hyperspace. 3 months had passed since Ambassador Lee Minho signed the partnership agreement, and now 50 Earth vessels carried 30,000 of humanity's finest into their first real test as Council members. "Admiral, we're approaching the Kepler sector," reported Captain Han So-min from the navigation station. Her voice carried the excitement of someone about to make history. This was humanity's chance to prove they belonged among the galactic powers. The mission briefing had been straightforward enough. A group of rebels had taken control of several mining colonies in the outer system. The Council needed someone to restore order without causing too much political trouble. It seemed perfect for Earth's forces, challenging enough to demonstrate their capabilities, but not so dangerous as to risk major losses. Kang walked to the main display screen. "What are we seeing on long-range sensors, Lieutenant Commander?" Park Hee-sung frowned at his readings. "That's strange, sir. I'm picking up massive energy signatures near the 4th planet, much larger than what rebel forces should have." Captain Han So-min joined them at the tactical display. Could the rebels have gotten hold of some serious military hardware? Before anyone could answer, the proximity alarm started screaming. The main screen filled with contacts, dozens of them, then hundreds. Ships were emerging from behind the planet's shadow, but these weren't the small rebel craft they expected to find. "Contact classification?" Kang demanded. "Unknown design, Admiral," came the shaky reply from the sensor operator, "but they're huge. The smallest ones are bigger than our cruisers." Kang felt ice form in his stomach. These ships looked like nothing in the Council database. Their hulls were dark and organic-looking, covered in what appeared to be living tissue rather than metal armor. Weapon ports opened along their sides like hungry mouths. "Get me a direct line to Council Command," Kang ordered. "We need immediate backup." Communications Officer Lim Jae-hyun tried several frequencies before looking up with confusion. "Sir, I can't reach Council headquarters. All channels are being jammed. The alien fleet was moving now, spreading out in a formation that spoke of military precision. These weren't rebels or pirates. This was a professional war fleet, and humanity had just sailed right into their trap. "All ships, battle stations," Kang broadcast to his fleet. "This is not what we were told to expect. Stay tight and prepare for combat." Captain Han So-min was already coordinating defensive positions when the first enemy salvo arrived. Beams of searing energy lanced through space, striking human shields with devastating force. The cruiser Harmony exploded in the first exchange, taking 800 crew members with it. "Return fire," Kang shouted. Human weapons struck back, but the enemy ships absorbed the damage like it was nothing. Their hulls seemed to regenerate. Healing weapon strikes within seconds. Worse, they were learning. Each human attack pattern was met with better defenses on the next exchange. "Admiral," Park Hye-sung called out in horror, "these things are adapting to our weapons in real time. They're some kind of biological ships." The battle turned into a nightmare. For every enemy ship the humans managed to destroy, 3 more human vessels were lost. The alien fleet moved like a school of predatory fish, coordinating their attacks with terrifying efficiency. Then Lieutenant Commander Yoo Dae-hyun spotted something on the edge of the system. "Admiral, new contacts bearing 270. Configuration suggests Council vessels." Relief flooded through the bridge crew. Finally, their allies had arrived. But as the Council ships came closer, they made no move to join the battle. Instead, they held position at the system's edge, watching the slaughter unfold. "Hail the Council fleet," Kang ordered desperately. The response came from General Vorthak himself. His reptilian face filled the screen, showing no emotion as human ships died in the background. "Admiral Kang, you are witnessing the Devourers. They were thought extinct, but we recently discovered..." They still existed. "Then help us fight them," Kang screamed. Vorthak's expression remained cold. "I'm afraid that's not possible. This is humanity's test. Succeed or fail on your own merit." The truth hit Kang like a physical blow. The Council hadn't just abandoned them. They had set this up. The rebellion story was a lie. They had deliberately sent humanity to fight these creatures, probably hoping both sides would destroy each other. The flagship shuddered as another enemy barrage found its mark. Hull breaches were reported on multiple decks. Captain Han So-min coordinated damage control, while Kang realized they had only minutes left. "Get me an emergency transmission to Earth," he ordered. "Maximum encryption, all available power." "Sir, the jammers. Override everything. This message has to get through." As his flagship's systems failed around him, Kang recorded humanity's final warning. "Council betrayed us. The rebellion was a lie. These are creatures called Devourers. Council is watching us die. They're coming for Earth next. Prepare for war. Trust no one from the Council." This is Admiral Kang's final message. The transmission burst toward Earth just as the Devourer flagship fired its main weapon. The human command ship broke apart, taking Admiral Kang and most of his crew into the void. Commander Yoo Dae-hyun watched from his damaged escape pod as the last human ships were overwhelmed. Only a few pods had managed to launch before their ships were destroyed. Out of 30,000 personnel, maybe 50 had survived. The Devourer fleet began consuming the wreckage, literally eating the remains of human vessels. In the distance, the Council ships turned and departed, their mission accomplished. They had found the perfect way to eliminate humanity's growing military threat while making it look like an unfortunate accident. But they had made one critical mistake. Admiral Kang's message was already racing toward Earth at faster than light speed. The encrypted message from Admiral Kang arrived at Earth's Deep Space Communication Center at 0347 hours, just as maintenance worker Kim Ji-won was making her routine rounds through the diplomatic quarters on Nexus Prime. She had been trying to contact Ambassador Lee Min-ho for the past hour, but his door remained locked and he wasn't responding to calls. When station security finally opened Min-ho's quarters, they found him slumped over his desk. The official report would claim suicide, stress from difficult negotiations, they said. But Ji-won noticed the tiny puncture wound behind his ear and the way his computer files had been wiped clean. This wasn't suicide, this was murder. Back on Earth, President Oh Hyun-woo was pulled from his sleep by emergency alerts flashing across every screen in the presidential bunker. Admiral Kang's final transmission played on repeat, each word hitting like a hammer blow. "Betrayed, Devourers, coming for Earth. Prepare for war." Within minutes, every major world leader was on secure channels. The footage from Kang's helmet camera showed the massive alien fleet that had destroyed humanity's expeditionary force. But more disturbing were the clear images of Council ships watching from a safe distance, doing nothing to help. "How many survivors?" President Oh asked General Park Sun-woo, his military advisor. "Maybe 50 out of 30,000, sir, Commander." Yoo Dae-hyun's pod was picked up by a merchant vessel. He's confirmed everything in the Admiral's message. The President's hands shook as he signed the first emergency order. Within hours, martial law was declared across every human colony and settlement. For the first time in Earth's history, the planet was preparing for an interstellar war. But even as emergency sessions began in every major capital, the Council was already spreading their version of events across the galaxy. Humanity had attacked. Peaceful mining colonies, they claimed. The Devourers were actually a Council peacekeeping force, responding to human aggression. Earth's fleet had been destroyed while attempting illegal expansion into Council territory. Kim Ji-won managed to escape Nexus Prime on a cargo freighter, but not before stealing classified Council communications. The files she carried would expose the truth, recorded conversations between Council leaders discussing humanity's elimination and detailed plans for dividing Earth's colonies among Council members. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Fleet Admiral Song Min-ji walked through corridors that hadn't seen daylight in decades. The Cheyenne Complex was humanity's most classified military installation, built during the early days after first contact, when world leaders realized they might someday need to defend against alien threats. "How long until full activation, Admiral?" Song asked the base commander. 72 hours for basic systems, ma'am. Full operational capability in 2 weeks. What the Council didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this possibility for 30 years. While Earth's public fleet numbered only a few hundred vessels, the real military had been built in secret. Hidden shipyards floated in the asteroid belt, disguised as mining operations. Automated factories on the dark side of the moon had been producing weapons and equipment for decades. Dr. Lim Kyung-ho led Admiral Song through the research levels. "We've been working on theoretical projects since first contact," he explained. The government wanted contingency plans in case peaceful relations failed. The elevator descended another 1,000 feet underground. "How theoretical?" Song asked. "Not very theoretical anymore." The doors opened to reveal the most classified project in human history. Dr. Bai Seulgi stood waiting beside a massive construction bay filled with machines that seemed to build themselves. Robotic arms welded metal while other machines produced more robotic arms. The entire process was self-sustaining and growing. Project Prometheus, Dr. Bay announced. Self-replicating manufacturing systems. They can produce anything from starships to weapons to more manufacturing systems. The only limit is raw materials. Admiral Song watched in amazement as a half-completed warship took shape before her eyes. How fast can they work? One facility can produce 10 ships per day once fully operational, but here's the real advantage. Each ship they build can carry its own manufacturing system. They spread and multiply wherever they go. The president arrived the next day to see the project for himself. The manufacturing bays had already doubled in size, with new construction robots building additional facilities. "How many can we produce?" Dr. Lim pulled up holographic displays showing production estimates. "Within 6 months, we'll have thousands of vessels, but these won't be like anything the Council has seen. We've incorporated every piece of alien technology we've secretly studied over the past 3 decades. The new ships were revolutionary. Their hulls used adaptive materials that could change properties based on threats. Their weapon systems learned from each battle, becoming more effective against specific enemies. Most importantly, they were designed specifically to counter the technologies the Council had shared with humanity during the so-called partnership negotiations. They wanted to study our capabilities, President O said grimly. Now they'll see what we kept hidden. Commander Yu De-hyun had finally made it back to Earth, carried by sympathetic alien merchants who hadn't believed the Council's propaganda. His first-hand account of the battle confirmed humanity's worst fears. The Council had deliberately sent them to die, probably planning to claim Earth's colonies while the fleet was destroyed far from home. But the Council had made a critical error. They assumed humanity's public military was all they had. The hidden shipyards, the secret research projects, the classified weapons programs, none of it appeared in any database the Council had access to. Admiral Song stood in the main command center, watching displays that showed human military assets across the solar system coming online. Bases on Mars, Europa, and Titan were activating weapon systems that had waited decades to be used. The asteroid belt mining operations were revealing their true purpose as military shipyards. "Ma'am, we're receiving distress signals from our outer colonies," reported Communications Officer Lee Dae-hyun. "Council fleets are demanding surrender and occupation rights." "Tell them to stall for time," Song ordered. "We need 6 more weeks to complete fleet construction." President O addressed the nation that evening, revealing the truth about humanity's betrayal and the massive military buildup that was about to launch. "For 30 years we hoped for peace among the stars. We built defenses in secret, praying we'd never need them. That time of hope is over. The final piece of humanity's preparation was the most disturbing. Dr. Bay had developed weapons specifically designed to counter each Council species. Sonic disruptors for the crystalline beings, electromagnetic pulses for the energy creatures, biological agents for the organic species. Humanity had studied their supposed allies and created tools for their destruction. Within 6 months, what had been a small exploration fleet became the most advanced armada the galaxy had ever seen. Ships that could repair themselves, weapons that adapted to any defense, manufacturing systems that could turn asteroids into battleships. The Council had awakened something they didn't understand and couldn't control. Earth was no longer the naive newcomer seeking acceptance. Humanity was preparing to teach the galaxy a lesson about the consequences of betrayal. Fleet Admiral John Woo-jin stood on the bridge of humanity's new flagship, watching 2,000 warships form up in perfect formation around him. 6 months of non-stop construction had produced the largest fleet Earth had ever assembled. But these weren't ordinary ships. They carried weapons that could bend the laws of physics themselves. "Admiral, all vessels report ready for hyperspace." "Jump," announced his second-in-command, Commander Nari. Her voice was steady, but Woo-jin could see the determination burning in her eyes. Everyone aboard these ships had lost friends or family in the Kepler sector massacre. The first target was Outpost Zeta 7, a Council military base that controlled shipping routes between 3 star systems. Intelligence reports showed it was heavily defended with the latest Council technology. It would be the perfect place to send a message. "Jump in 60 seconds, Woo-jin ordered. "All ships, remember? We're not here to conquer. We're here to remind the galaxy that humanity doesn't forgive betrayal." The fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect synchronization. Outpost Zeta 7's commanders had exactly 30 seconds to realize what was happening before the human weapons opened fire. The base's shields, designed to stop conventional energy weapons, simply didn't exist against humanity's new technology. Dr. Bay's gravitational disruptors created micro-black holes that consumed the station's armor plating. Quantum torpedoes phased through solid matter before exploding inside their targets. Within minutes, the supposedly impregnable fortress was reduced to drifting debris. "Broadcast on all frequencies," Woo-jin commanded. His message reached every corner of Council space. "This is Fleet Admiral John Woo-jin of the Human Defense Force. You wanted to see humanity's capacity for war. You sent our people to die in a trap, thinking we were weak and helpless. Now you'll see why we kept our true strength hidden." The reaction across Council territories was immediate panic. Their intelligence services had completely missed humanity's real military capabilities. The species that was supposed to be primitive cannon fodder had just destroyed their most advanced military installation in minutes. Commander Nari coordinated the systematic destruction of Council assets across 17 star systems. Human strike forces appeared without warning, obliterated their targets, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. The Council's member species, used to centuries of easy dominance over younger races, found themselves facing an enemy they couldn't understand or stop. Captain Shin Dong-hyuk led the rescue operations, using intelligence gathered from captured Council databases to locate human prisoners. The first rescue came at a detention facility on Kepler 9, where survivors from Admiral Kang's fleet were being held for interrogation. "Breaching charges set," reported Sergeant Kim Min-seo as her team prepared to assault the prison complex. The facility's alien guards had never faced human military tactics. While their attention was focused on the frontal assault, Captain Shin's team cut through the rear walls using molecular disintegration tools. They found the human prisoners in conditions that violated every galactic treaty on prisoner treatment. Commander, Yoo Dae-hyun was barely alive, his body bearing evidence of systematic torture. The Council interrogators had been trying to extract information about Earth's defenses, using methods that left permanent physical and psychological damage. "Get medical teams here now," Captain Shin ordered, as his soldiers carefully moved the wounded prisoners to safety. The rescue footage was broadcast across every communication network in the galaxy. Images of tortured human prisoners sparked outrage among neutral species who had believed the Council's propaganda about humanity's alleged aggression. Public opinion began shifting as the truth about the Kepler sector massacre became impossible to deny. General Vorthak, the Council's military commander who had orchestrated the original betrayal, tried to rally his forces for a counterattack. But his fleets kept disappearing. Human ships would appear, destroy everything in sight, and vanish before his reinforcements arrived. The tactics were unlike anything in Council military doctrine. "How are they moving so fast?" Vorthak demanded from his command ship. His science advisor, a floating jellyfish-like creature, displayed tactical readings. Their ships appear to be using some form of space-folding technology. They're not traveling through hyperspace. They're literally bending reality to move instantly between locations. The Council's emergency session was chaos. Representatives from 12 species shouted accusations and demanded explanations. The crystal beings wanted to know why their supposedly superior technology was useless against human weapons. The energy creatures complained that their traditional defensive methods were being completely bypassed. "We must negotiate," insisted Speaker Val 9, the tree-like being who had originally welcomed humanity to the Council. This was meant to be a simple elimination of a potential threat. We never expected such resistance. But Admiral Wu Jin's response to their surrender offers was swift and brutal. "You had your chance for peace when Ambassador Li Minho came to you in good faith. You chose betrayal and murder instead. Now you face the consequences." The Genesis bombs were humanity's most terrifying weapon. Instead of simply destroying targets, they remade entire planetary atmospheres. Council worlds found their air becoming toxic to their native species while remaining perfectly breathable for humans. It was psychological warfare on a massive scale. The message that humanity could take their worlds whenever they chose. The first Genesis deployment came after the Council ignored humanity's demand for complete surrender. The military world of Nexus 4 watched its atmosphere slowly change over the course of weeks. Plants withered, water sources became contaminated, and the alien population had to evacuate or die. "This is what you planned for Earth," Wu Jin broadcast to the fleeing Council forces. "You wanted to eliminate us and take our worlds. Now you know how it feels to lose everything." Captain Park Jinwan led the final assault on the Council's main fleet. Their massive dreadnoughts, each one larger than entire human cities, proved helpless against weapons that ignored conventional physics. Gravitational weapons crushed their hulls like tin cans. Quantum disruptors made their atoms forget how to stay together. The battle was over in hours. Centuries of Council military supremacy ended as their greatest warships became expanding clouds. Of particles, survivors broadcast desperate surrender messages, but humanity's response was always the same: complete dissolution of the Council and full reparations for the Kepler sector massacre. "Sir, we're receiving communications from neutral species requesting mediation," Commander Nari reported. Admiral Wu Jin studied the tactical displays showing Council territories falling one by one. "Tell them the time for mediation ended when they watched our people die. The Council chose war. Now they'll learn why that was a mistake. The hammer had fallen, and the galaxy would never be the same." The final battle for Nexus Prime began at dawn on the planet's longest day. Admiral John Wu Jin stood in the transport shuttle, watching the massive towers of the Council headquarters grow larger through the viewport. After 8 months of systematic destruction across Council space, this was the last stronghold of the once mighty galactic government. Colonel Nam Yunji checked her weapon one final time. "Intelligence reports show most of the Council leadership is still in the central tower. They're probably hoping their personal shields will protect them." Wu Jin almost smiled. The Council still didn't understand what they were facing. Human weapons didn't care about energy shields or armor plating, the same technology that had destroyed. Entire fleets would make short work of any defenses the Council leaders had left. The city below was already in chaos. Council security forces were surrendering without firing a shot, having heard what happened to those who tried to fight humanity's advance. Civilian populations were evacuating in massive waves, fleeing to any transport that could carry them. "Away from the coming assault. All teams begin landing operations," Wu Jin commanded. "Remember, we want the Council leadership alive for trial. Everyone else gets one chance to surrender." The human forces landed in perfect coordination. Captain Lee Sungmin's team secured the outer perimeter, while Major Kim Jae-ho's units moved through the government district. There was almost no resistance. The species that had once dominated the galaxy through fear and manipulation were now cowering in their towers, waiting for the end. Wu Jin and Colonel Nam led the assault on the main Council building personally. The massive structure had stood for over 1,000 years, a symbol of galactic unity and cooperation. Now it would become the tomb of the organization that had betrayed humanity's trust. The elevator to the top floors had been disabled. So human, soldiers used gravity manipulators to simply walk up the outside walls. Council security systems that had protected the building for centuries were useless against technology that treated physical laws as suggestions rather than rules. Motion sensors show the main chamber has occupants, reported Sergeant Choi Mina from her scanner. Looks like all 12 council representatives are still here. The Great Council chamber looked exactly as it had months ago when Ambassador Lee Minho had signed humanity's partnership agreement. The circular room with its floating platforms and impressive holographic displays was designed to intimidate visitors with the council's power and authority. Now it felt like a museum exhibit from a dead civilization. The 12 surviving council members were huddled together in the center of the chamber. Speaker Val 9, the tree-like being who had welcomed humanity with false friendship, stepped forward, with his branches trembling. Admiral Wu Jin, the speaker began, his translator making his voice sound pathetic and weak. We wish to discuss terms of surrender. Surely we can reach some accommodation that benefits both our peoples. Wu Jin walked slowly around the group of aliens, studying each face. These were the beings who had planned humanity's destruction, who had watched 30,000 human soldiers die for their entertainment, who had ordered the torture of prisoners and the elimination of Earth's colonies. You want to negotiate? Wu Jin's voice was colder than space itself. Where were your negotiations when you sent our fleet into a trap? Where was your mercy when you tortured our survivors? General Vorthak, the reptilian military commander who had orchestrated the Kepler sector massacre, tried to stand straight, despite his obvious fear. The Council was acting to preserve galactic stability. Your species showed dangerous, aggressive tendencies that threatened. Colonel Nam's weapon appeared in her hand so fast, it seemed like magic. The energy beam passed millimeters from Vorthak's head, leaving a smoking hole in the wall behind him. The Admiral is talking, she said quietly. Wu Jin continued his slow circle around the cowering council members. You made the choice to betray us. You decided that humanity was expendable. You chose to murder our ambassador and send our people to die. Actions have consequences. The crystal being known as Resonance Prime chimed desperately. We can make reparations, technology transfers, territorial concessions, whatever you require. What we required was honesty, Wu Jin replied. What we wanted was peace. You gave us treachery and death instead. Over the following weeks, the dismantling of Council civilization proceeded with mechanical efficiency. Commander Park Si-hyun established monitoring stations throughout the former Council territories, each one broadcasting the same simple message. Earth remembers. Earth does not forgive. The 12 Council species were scattered to primitive worlds at the edge of the galaxy. Their advanced technology was confiscated, their military capabilities permanently eliminated. Some were sent to worlds with barely breathable atmospheres. Others found themselves on planets where they had to struggle just to find food and shelter. It's fitting, Colonel Nam observed as she watched the last transport ships carrying Council refugees into exile. They wanted to reduce humanity to scattered survivors. Now they know how that feels. But humanity's response to victory surprised many observers throughout the galaxy. Instead of claiming the vast Council territories as an empire, Earth's forces simply withdrew. The monitoring stations remained, along with clear warnings about what would happen to anyone who threatened human interests. But there was no occupation, no colonial expansion, no attempt to rule over other species. President Oh Hyun-woo addressed the galaxy from Earth. We never wanted an empire. We wanted to explore the stars in peace, to learn from other civilizations, to share in the wonder of the universe. The Council took that dream from us and forced us to become something we never wished to be. The human fleet returned to Earth space, but the galaxy would never forget what they had accomplished. News of humanity's victory spread to every corner of known space. Species that had been oppressed by the Council for centuries began asserting their independence, knowing that the old order could never return. Commander Park Si-hyun remained at the monitoring station on Nexus Prime, now renamed Remembrance Station. The facility's primary function was to ensure that no new galactic government could rise to threaten humanity, but it also served as a library and memorial to those who died in the Kepler sector. Young beings from across the galaxy came to study the records of humanity's war, trying to understand how a relatively small and supposedly primitive species had defeated the most powerful organization in galactic history. The answer was always the same: never underestimate those who choose peace, because when that choice is taken from them, they become absolutely unstoppable. Earth settled into its new role as the galaxy's silent guardian. Human ships patrolled the major trade routes, protecting commerce and preventing the rise of new threats. But they made no demands, claimed no tribute, established no colonies among other species. They simply watched and waited, ready to act if anyone else tried to. Repeat the Council's mistakes. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Some species were best left alone, especially those who preferred peace but were perfectly capable of war. Humanity had proven that betraying their trust came with consequences that would echo through the stars for generations. In the end, Earth stood alone by choice, having earned both the respect and fear of every civilization among the stars.